All right, so welcome everyone. Couch Investor here with a very special guest on today's channel. You've probably seen him on his own YouTube channel and on X. Links will be down in the description below. Farzad is here on the couch. There's no casting couch behind me, but you better believe there is a couch somewhere in the region. Farzad, welcome on the channel.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be on your couch. I'm very much looking forward to having a great conversation on your couch.
We are having plenty of auditions this week.
Awesome, man.
So yeah, first up, maybe a short introduction for those that still haven't found out who you are, and then what led you to investing in Tesla. And I know you worked at Tesla as well, so maybe if you could share some things there.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. Farzad Mesbahi. I've been a Tesla investor since 2012. I worked at the company from 2017 through 2021. Before that, I was a director of BI, business intelligence and pricing at a $1 billion distributor. I've been doing YouTube for about almost 2 years now, which was completely accidental. And yeah, it's been super fun creating videos around the EV space. I covered Tesla quite heavily, starting to get a little bit more into artificial intelligence and stuff like that. But one of the key things that brought me to Tesla early on in 2012 was this the emergence of the electric vehicle and Tesla as the leader, with Elon Musk being sort of the front face and getting a lot of news and attention. There was this very unique investing community that was created around it called Tesla Motors Club, which had an investors forum, which I stumbled upon when I was trying to figure out what to put my my $5,000 in at that time. I didn't have a lot, but I had something, and that was just such a unique community that was built around it from an investing perspective, that was saying a lot of things that the mainstream media wasn't saying. I'm like, wow, this is really interesting. People like Dave Lee with his mega threads back in the day. He's really one of the main reasons why I discovered Tesla and decided to invest in the first place. Folks like Emma Peppers were there. I believe James Stevenson as well. So these like OG early Tesla folks. And yeah, it just over the years, it became quite obvious, in my opinion, that the company has a lot going for it, and it still feels like it's very much in its infancy of its full potential. And so I just find it as a great investing, just a place to put my money, because I understand it fully. I've invested a lot of time researching it, and it has a phenomenal investing community around it where I can bounce ideas off of. So yeah, it just offers a complete package for something I'm looking for, and it's been an awesome journey.
All right, no, fair enough. I think we are obviously part of the Tesla community. We see everything that's happening behind the scenes. I mean, to be honest, I don't think there's anything like it. Maybe Palantir is slowly but surely growing as well. But from an investment standpoint, I think this is one of the best advantages that retail can have. The community that Tesla investors, retail especially, has built is second to none. I mean, previously you would have had to buy Bloomberg terminals for your old company and researchers and analysts. Yeah. And today you're on X, you're on YouTube, you're on some forums, and you're like, feel like I know more than mainstream media today. Is not really that difficult, but I mean, certainly throughout the years that we've built a pretty good community for investors. At Tesla, working at Tesla, because this is something I think someone wanted me to ask, how does the idea cycle actually go through? Like, you got an idea, you go to the manager, how long does it take until it gets implemented or not? I think someone actually said that it gets put into an AI stuff and you get answers. I mean, I was like, that sounds a bit too good to be true, but I mean, you work there, so maybe you could share a bit more information about how things develop at the company.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll speak from experience. I won't speak, it's a giant company, over 100,000 people. So I can only speak about my experience, but we definitely didn't have an AI. We had the opposite. We had a bunch of people that we were all extremely tired and working extremely hard. And we had to use this. I wouldn't even call it an eye. It was just a brain that's there, that's built to solve problems as quickly as we can. The way, from my experience, Tesla worked is the iteration and not having a fear of failure is really the key drivers for Tesla's ability to come up with great ideas. So they've built this culture where every person at the company essentially has the ability to bring forward ideas and implement those ideas, because the leadership teams have been taught to harness the people that we've hired, like harness the people we've hired. There's a ton of incredible leaders out there. My leader from Tesla is one of my closest friends now. His name's Greg. And very much the culture was, it doesn't matter what level you're in. If you have an idea, bring it forward. And if it sounds like a good idea and you've done the diligence to try it, usually within 24 hours, you're working on the solution already. And sometimes things were implemented the same day. The amount of bureaucracy at the company is much, much less, almost non-existent in a lot of areas that I was exposed to, especially versus other large companies. And that's a giant advantage. And I think for those that have had a chance to read the Elon Musk biography by Walter Isaacson, highly recommend you read that book, because you get so much insight into why that culture exists and how Elon Musk is a very important piece of that puzzle to ensure that people are held accountable to uphold that standard. But yeah, that's the mechanism. It's not very different from just like being unrelentingly okay with trying stuff all the time that will fail. And without artificial intelligence, I feel like that's the best way humans can figure stuff out. And the company not firing you for at least trying hard, like you are okay trying hard and failing as long as you're trying hard, and ensuring you have a culture that embraces that and empowers people to try that. Eventually, since you've hired some of the best talent, if not the best talent in the world, those people will find the most optimal solution, and you just keep trying over and over and over again. And that's why you have a automaker that can produce the cars it does. That's why you have a rocket company in SpaceX that can, create rockets that go up and come back down. And I think the one booster has 17 flights already, like 17 flights on the same booster. You don't do that unless you have a culture that forces people to try stuff and not be punished for failing. So it's all rooted in that.
Okay. I'm going to come back to that a bit later when we talk a bit about the competition, but I'll switch from positive to negative so people get a bit of a mix here.
Yeah.
Where do you think Tesla could go wrong from here? We can talk about the key man risk, of course, if God forbid something happens to Elon. Where do you think currently we are all thinking Tesla, it's, too big to fail right now. It's going to dominate for years and years, whether it's cars, energy, AI, you name it. What are some of the negative things that you could see happen for the company going forward, whether it's Elon or the company, or maybe both? Because Elon, Tesla is basically same.
It's a great question, and I think it's one that I spent a lot of time thinking through. I think there's levels of weaknesses and there's levels of potential, say, hurdles and roadblocks that Tesla's going to encounter. And they range from, yeah, it's going to suck, but they'll get over it eventually, to, oh, if this happens, it's going to have a material impact specifically to the stock price and potentially the long-term valuation of the company. In my opinion, key man risk is by far the largest. I do think that Elon, as much as the sort of team around him and the culture he's built is second to none, in my opinion, it still very much hinges on this individual going out there and just forcing the issue constantly, because you require that level of sort of willingness to go through pain of just going through molasses and trying really hard to push something through. That requires a very specific type of leader. If Elon Musk was removed from that equation, I think things like the bot, for example, the Optimus robot that Tesla is working on, or the adoption rate of full self-driving are dramatically impacted, especially the Optimus robot. So these long-term moonshot ideas for the company that, as long as Elon Musk is involved, in my opinion, have a better chance than not to come to fruition. Those become very much at risk. But the longer he's at the company, the less, the lower that risk becomes. It becomes less and less significant, because now I've taken additional time to build out the team, build out the processes, build on the manufacturing, and really implement the things you need to implement for that to happen. So that's one, and by far the largest one. The second one that I can think of is, as Tesla's influence grows, and as Elon is very much not afraid to speak his mind, and you can already see that he's being attacked in the U.S. media quite a bit, especially from partisan media outlets, let's call them.
In Europe as well, by the way.
Okay, that's actually good to know. He's a magnet for attention, positive and negative. And so human beings being human beings, there might be an environment where it would be arbitrarily, like they'll make it arbitrarily difficult or difficult for the sake of being difficult because they don't like him to get stuff through. So you see stuff like the DOJ, the Department of Justice, looking into this glass house that doesn't exist, supposedly, going after him for these like nonsensical things. You got the FAA being very slow in approving a Starship thing. These could just be part of the natural process of ensuring we have checks and balances in the United States and other countries abroad. But it also brings up the sort of like, hey, as long as humans are in charge of these systems and Elon continually pushes against those systems, it would be naive to think that those systems won't fight back. So that's going to be another risk. But I do think that with enough time, like that is a significantly lower risk than say the key man risk, but it's still a risk. It might, what it will probably do is delay Tesla's ability to reach its maximum potential. But I feel like it will still reach its maximum potential because the business case and the boost to the economy of Tesla as a company is too large to ignore. And at some point, the systems will recognize that. And instead of, the old adage of if you can't fight them, join them, eventually it will get there short of a monopoly, And I think really that's a legitimate long-term risk for Tesla's valuation, is that it gets so large that monopoly sort of will come into play, and then we will have to be forced to sort of break them up and make a AI division, make an auto division, make an energy division. That is a legitimate long-term risk, but that assumes a significant increase in the valuation of the company, which as a Tesla bull and a long-term investor, I think that's the most likely scenario. So that's the real one.
Okay. No, I agree, because currently we can also see from, it's every week there's a new announcement of another country that wants Tesla to invest in that country. So there's no shortage of interest in seeing Tesla succeed around the world. And I think it's just an inevitability that the United States will acknowledge, Tesla's work, impact on the economy. We're seeing right now, it's going to have a small impact on globalization, moving stuff from China to Europe to the United States. It makes sense in one way, because I've spoken with Hans about this. We've agreed. We went one way way too fast. We went from manufacturing stuff in our houses, our country, and then like basically Control-Alt-Delete, everything goes to China. We're left with basically nothing. We've seen that with the semiconductor industry, which is going to be a big story, I think, in the later stages of this decade.
Huge. Yeah.
So yeah, I think the success for Tesla is pretty certain, let's say. But like with Apple and Steve Jobs, I think there is a difference in maximum potential. With Steve Jobs, I think the maximum potential of Apple would have been much higher. Right now with Tim Cook, he's done a tremendous job for his shareholders and everything, but innovation-wise, it hasn't been that great, right? I think you made a post about this. Besides the Vision Pro, what else? A new camera, a new USB-C, even though Android has it for the last couple of years.
USB-C, man, just game-changing stuff.
Incredible. New invention.
Yes.
But yeah, I think with Tesla, key man risk is the number one. It's not going to change whether or not it's going to be successful. It's going to change whether or not it's going to be the biggest thing that has ever happened, in my opinion.
I agree.
Now, going into a more negative thing, in the last couple of years, maybe it might be Twitter, it might be something else. Is there something that you're like, maybe they shouldn't have done this, maybe Elon shouldn't have done that?
Yeah, I think when he initially bought Twitter and his rhetoric was extreme, I think that was a bummer, because as the referee, call it, of the platform, and Dave really and I had a discussion on this. He started off with the worst foot possible to create a place for everybody to come together. It was like, I just bought the company and here are my viewpoints. Like, oh shit. It took me a little while to think through it and be like, okay, this is probably a problem. So he's like dug himself in a hole at the very beginning, where he's already put people that already didn't like him to just be like, this guy is a complete, he's just crazy. I don't want anything to deal with him. And you kind of see this already on X, where you have people that will never buy a blue check mark because Elon Musk is the owner, right? So, and one could say, okay, that's a very small percentage of the population. Is it really going to materially impact the platform's ability to be successful in the long term? Probably not. Is it going to delay it? Yes. But, that was one where when he initially bought the company, this very grandiose, all-inclusive mission statement that seemed to maximize the number of people that could gravitate towards it, was minimized by him by him exercising his free speech, which I think talks more about the environment that we're in more than anything, because we're like, oh, that's wrong, that's messed up. It's like, okay, well, it's another human being who has an opinion. Is that really that bad, right? So, but I do view it as a negative, because it did put him, that Twitter's and X's long-term success was delayed because of that. But that's okay. I think if on the flip side, it's going to create a sort of dynamic where they're going to have to be forced to create such a great product that even people that hate Elon have to use it, which will ensure that the product is as good as it possibly can be. It's almost like a forced. It's almost like, some people might say it was on purpose to create an environment so that they can create the best product possible, but I highly doubt it. As you can read through the biography, it's just the guy's sometimes very impulsive, and then he'll have foot and mouth moment. So, but when it comes to execution on technology and execution on product, I just think he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT that's especially alive today. And those folks tend to surround themselves with extremely talented people that will help them achieve what they're looking for. And under that respect, I think whatever mistakes he makes will be fixable. And that's why, things like this maybe don't impact me that much, because I know they can overcome it. When you have a company filled with problem solvers, you can solve your own problems, right? Your own self inflicted problems. So, yeah.
Okay. No, I agree, because when you build something so good, then people will use it regardless if they like the person or not. A prime example, right. I remember when Mark Zuckerberg, right? Everybody was looking at him like he's a robot, an alien. Nobody likes him. But now Threads, anti-Elon platform, anti-Twitter, is like, oh, Lord and Savior. And Instagram.
Amazon in the US is perfect. Amazon, so many people hate Jeff Bezos, but literally people cannot live without Amazon.
To me, Amazon membership is one of the best memberships out there. So yeah, I agree with that. And I think we dodged a couple of bullets with Elon. We've seen it in the biography, talking about the next generation platform. Thank God there are other people at the company that can convince him to think about a model, the so-called Model 2, to not only be a robot taxi. That would have been a huge mistake in my opinion. And I think the same could be said about just building it in Giga Mexico. And I think he was like, oh, I'm okay with going to live in Mexico for a while to build this new next generation platform. So everybody else must be okay with that. And I think he noticed that no, that's not going to work. So I think it makes sense for them to start in Austin and then eventually copy it and move it to Austin, to Mexico. Now, before we touch on that, what's your view of what's going on right now with the UAW strikes? How is the competition going to survive? Because I've seen the demands. It's looking for a short-term pay, but this will lead to the inevitable bankruptcy, and these people will be without a job, or the government will just come back and say, oh, here, take some money. And then the argument of what is his name, Sean Fain, is like, EVs are just taking taxpayer dollars, etc., etc. Last time I checked, most automakers were bankrupt and they got their taxpayer money to save them. So
amazing how that works, huh?
Yeah, pretty crazy. And then he suddenly talks about rockets, Elon's rockets, as if that has anything to do with what's going on right now. But yeah. What's your view on what's going on?
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, because I don't think it could have come at a worse time for the legacy automakers. They're already at a disadvantage from a price perspective against Tesla in EVs, because they're losing money when they're making them, and they don't have the supply chains and the economies of scale and the expertise to build cars as cheaply as Tesla can, especially dollar for dollar. Or like, feature set for feature set. So from that perspective, they're already at a disadvantage. Then you have the UAW coming on top of it and saying, we're going to force a 2 to 5% cost increase across the board on your company because you suck and you're not paying our workers enough and you're in a union and you owe us money, right? And if you don't do that, we shut down your factories. Okay, so what's the outcome here? The big three, so GM, Ford, and Stellantis lose. They lose, regardless if they don't or do agree to the UAW. And so this is just going to create an environment where legacy automakers, specifically those three, are going to have a bigger cost disadvantage into the future, which is the biggest variable that people look for when purchasing an EV. It's price. Like, I want to buy an EV because it fits my budget. And then charging and range is sort of like in tandem with that, but cost is really one of the primary variables. So you take that, and then you have a scenario starting next year where you're going to have the EV tax credit being included at the point of sale for cars that qualify, which Tesla will continue to qualify for most of the models, and other automakers have to figure out how to localize their supply chain in higher cost, potentially environments to create EVs, which additionally puts them in a more disadvantage. And now you've created this environment in addition to the UAW where legacy automakers are going to be so uncompetitive from a pricing perspective that they're going to have to be forced. They're going to be forced to look in the up market. They're going to be forced to sell EVs, let's say between the $50,000 to $80,000 plus level, whereas Tesla will have basically the $20,000 to $50,000 level all to its own. So, and that's where most buyers are. And what is a huge advantage that Tesla will have on top of that once they sell to those customers is because they are selling the most units of EVs, they're going to have the most data for their full self-driving stack. And when we go to autonomous in the next, say, 1 to 10 years, who's going to have an outsized advantage from that perspective? It's Tesla. So the UAW is just an accelerant. I think it just speaks to the sort of the innovator's dilemma. For those that haven't read that book, I forget the author, Mark Andreessen. No, was it Mark? I forget who the author was.
Yeah, Hans mentioned it yesterday as well. It's a shorter name, I think. It's a short, but yeah, I'll pop it up on the screen for those that are watching.
Perfect. It's for those that haven't read it. I would suggest you read that book because it just outlines the variables that are at play here with legacy automakers, and that's why they can't just simply flip a switch and make EVs. They have too many legacy things going on that are going to keep them from doing that. And the UAW, the union, is a major variable because they're the ones that are actually building the cars. So yeah, it's ugly. It's getting real ugly for the legacy automakers. And I think what will probably happen is in the next few years, they will sort of call back to this moment as a reason why they need help. And if the US government is convinced that if they don't bail them out, it will have a material impact to the economy, then they'll bail them out. But then the question becomes, what are they going to do with that bailout? Are they going to what are they going to do? Are they going to start building more EVs that people don't want to buy? It's going to get weird. I think that there is a chance that Tesla becomes a major part of that bailout in some way as a player that helps these automakers transition. And who knows, maybe Tesla will get part ownership. Who knows? I have no freaking idea. But I think Tesla's going to be involved in that at some point. They're going to be a player in rescuing the legacy automakers because there are too many jobs that are tied to that. If those jobs were to disappear in the next 6 to 9 month period, that it will have a serious major consequences to the U.S. economy. So it's a weird place to be, but it's legacy automakers should have prepared for this much sooner. And now they're fighting for their survival, even though most people don't perceive it that way because no one's really paying attention to this as close as we are. It's obvious, in my opinion, where it's going to end up. And it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, because I think, a bailout makes sense only if you think that investments make sense. Doesn't make sense if a couple of years later you have to come back and build them out yet again. I think you're right that I think Tesla will play a role. I think maybe Apple might play a role because, I mean, the Apple car was supposed to come out already 3 times, but nothing.
That's what they're waiting for.
Yeah, no, for sure they can scoop them up. But the big issue for me is that the culture is completely different. Apple people, Tesla people are not like GM or Ford. So I don't know how that will work, but for sure I could see manufacturing jobs being picked up by companies like Tesla, because I mean, manufacturing jobs, if it's not replaced by a robot by then, could be something I can see happen. Talking about legacy, you're in Texas. Oil is a pretty big deal there. Can you understand the negativity towards EV, towards the acceleration towards sustainable energy, while constantly bashing on that industry, which makes our lives currently, I mean, and for the foreseeable future, still a good one?
Yeah. I can definitely see it. I mean, one of my good friends from here, his name's Travis, and he used to work in an oil field. He's a diehard Texan. He loves his F-250. He didn't know anything about EVs. If anything, he had a negative connotation with EVs until he met me and I introduced him to sort of like to my Model Y, and he was like, "What the hell?" And I had no idea this thing was this crazy, right? But I understand where they're coming from, because they have this mindset of it's not going to be able to fit my needs, and so I think it's bad. In addition to, Americans tend to hate being told what to do. Like, they hate it. And when the government is coming out with incentives to transition to EVs, it's perceived as if they're trying to force me to give up my gas car. I'm going to resist it even more, So that's a variable. And then when you think about like the feature set of an EV, Americans tend to like their cars to do the exceptions. And so what I mean by that is people will buy the pickup truck that can haul 10,000 pounds and go 500 miles in a gas tank just in case they need it, but they may not ever use it. But they like knowing that they just in case, I am Ted from a ranch in Texas, and I got to go rescue my buddy that's stuck in the mud, and I got to bring his trailer with me. That's like, okay, I better buy a truck that can do that, right? So, and you have something similar of that mindset, which I completely get. Like, I completely understand. That's what makes this country so awesome, is people can just like buy things just in case they need them. It's like, it's a sign of prosperity. But I think as the transition furthers more into the EV, like as EVs become more and more commonplace, I think what you're going to start to see is that the cost advantage of EVs are going to be too great to ignore. And what most people don't get that own a gas car is that it's significantly more convenient to own EV versus a gas car, because you never have to go to the gas station. You just charge at home. And so as long as you have that charge at home variable, the EV makes way more sense than a gas car. Way, way, way more sense. Outside of the very unique exceptions of having to go 2,000 miles on a weekend, pulling a trailer, so you need an F-250 with 1,000-mile gas tank. Okay, great. Yeah, EV won't do that. But how many people actually need that? It's like, what, 1% of the population, maybe less. So, we'll see. It's going to be an evolution. And I think as education and more EVs are on the road, I think it's just going to force people to look into it. But like, okay, why are there so many freaking EVs on the road? Like, what the hell is going on? I don't understand it. And I think those, most people are very reasonable and they can problem solve quite well, and they're critical thinkers. So they're like, okay, why are there so many Teslas on the road? And then they'll fall into a bunch of articles and videos and stuff of people talking about it. And then they'll end up going and being like, okay, maybe this makes sense for me. Let me see how much it costs. Holy crap, I can buy a Tesla compact car for $25,000 and it drives itself, maybe. Holy shit, let me place an order right now. That's probably what's going to happen. And it's going to take some time, but that's probably where we're going.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I can understand both sides. I can understand the people that are not extremely pro EVs right now, just because, like you said, they don't like to be told, yeah, you have to sell your car right now to buy something else. I think eventually, like with every innovation, if it becomes cheap enough and the standard stays the same or becomes even better, I mean, the switch becomes inevitable. Because I understand people that say, oh, why am I going to pay more right now to receive less, whether it's for EVs or from other products? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. But competition-wise, because in the US, maybe not so much, but in Europe, I mean, most people drive small cars, still ICE vehicles a lot. I mean, the Golf for Volkswagen has been the most successful car because it's small, it's good, it's compact. Do you still see this as a competition? Because I've seen some announcement from some politicians in the UK. I mean, DeSantis said it himself, for decelerating the move towards EVs. And look, my parents, we had a Golf for 22 years or something. I wish they switched to a Tesla, but in Europe, Tesla is still pretty expensive compared to the other things that you can get. So we got a T-Roc, I think, T-Cross, one of the two. Tech-wise, it sucks. It's a good upgrade because our car was 22 years old, but I can understand why people don't go yet to EVs, because it's still pretty expensive. I mean, the difference was a couple of thousands of dollars, if not more. So do you see this as an issue going forward, especially with some policy changes maybe coming in?
It's only an issue if companies like Tesla aren't able to go down market, but they are going down market. They are coming out with that compact car that's going to be that Golf competitor, right? That, and we'll see in what kind of configuration it comes out on. It has a 2-seater or 4-seater, whatever it may be. But they are going down the cost curve. And the key thing to remember here is that we're not at the end of the cost curve. The ICE car has been running a cost curve for near 100 years. That's the key thing we have to remember. We've been able to reduce the cost of manufacturing of a gas car for 100 years. And the EV is really in earnest in it for 10 years, maybe. So we have 10x more to go to reach the same level of cost benefits that the gas car has been able to enjoy for the last 100 years. And we're already pretty damn close at cost parity so we're already better in the luxury market with the Model S and the Model X. We're already, I would argue, better in the mid-luxury market, call it, with the Model Y and Model 3. And as we continue that cost curve down and we ramp up factories and the 4680 starts ramping in earnest, and we optimize what chemistry and materials to use, and we optimize localization, and we come out with new manufacturing technologies, and the Optimus robot starts being part of the process, which reduces a ton of costs because you no longer have to pay a human potentially, which opens up a whole can of worms, but that's for a separate conversation. Now you're starting to become cost competitive truly, to a point where, say, in 20 to 30 years time, we're going to look back to this time period and be like, wow, like I had no idea EVs were going to be this cheap. In addition to the maintenance, probably not, it's not going to be anywhere close to the gas car in the future because it already isn't there now. And so you're going to have a cheaper car that's going to cost less to run, and it will probably drive itself. And that third variable is the one that really lowers costs, because you're removing the driver from the equation. And for people that don't have to own a car at all times, the cost of transportation drops down to almost nothing, because the only thing you have to pay for essentially is the cost of electricity to go from point A to point B, plus the markup that the fleet provider puts on top of that car. So it's everything is coalescing around the cost per mile of a transportation unit to be significantly cheaper for an electric vehicle than a gas car. And we're just getting started.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we are just getting started, despite Tesla being close to an $800 billion company. It's really crazy. If you go to someone and like, yeah, my best investment thesis right now, my best investment idea is an $800 billion company.
Crazy.
It is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, most of your points, I mean, people will eventually notice that EVs are better. I mean, we've been talking about advertising, yes, no, for a long, long time. Some will come to the conclusion that, yeah, they must advertise, even though they do. 200 ads have been found by Yahoo. Of course, not traditional advertising, but still advertising. But right now, I think high interest rates is one of the main reasons why we see some slowdown. But talking about advertising and a driving billboards, we have the Cybertruck coming out pretty soon. Hopefully, I don't know, every day we're waiting for that event announcement. But where do you see Tesla going from here? We have Cybertruck. Still have the Tesla Semi that has to ramp up. Giga Mexico start building whenever the permits are cleared. Next gen platform, new Megapack factories. Where do you see Tesla in 2030, let's say? Because that's a round number. People like round numbers. So 7 years from now, I'm asking you the question, what is Tesla at 2030?
So what a question. So 2030, Tesla will be the largest manufacturer of automobiles in the world. This is all my opinion, not investment advice. This is my guess. I don't have a crystal ball. Okay, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Tesla will be the largest manufacturer of cars in the world by 2030. They will be the largest provider of autonomous vehicles in the world by 2030. They will be the largest provider of utility scale battery by 2030, largest provider of solar solutions by 2030, and the most advanced AI company in the world by 2030 with its self-driving cars and humanoid robots that will be able to replace manual labor in many different respects. I think that's what Tesla will be by 2030. And so I just described 5 different companies that happen to be under one. And it's all enabled, all of this outcome, this outcome is only possible if you make a gigantic amount of batteries and you have a gigantic amount of data. And if you look at Tesla's plans for the next 7 to 10 years with the Master Plan Part 3 even further, and you look at what they're investing in right now, you can see that those variables are very much part of that outcome. They just bought 10,000 or 20,000 H100s, whatever that number was. They're looking to 20x their compute power in the next year and a half, and all of these things are going to enable them to reach that outcome. Plus, building up Mexico, announcing another gigafactory, and each one of these gigafactories is going to crank out anywhere between 1 to 2 million cars per year. So to get to that magic number of 20 million that they want to get to by 2030, or even 10 million by 2030, you don't need that many more factories. You just need a handful to get to that number, because you're going to have so much density from each one of these factories with the release of the compact car and their Gen 3 manufacturing process. Yeah.
No, good answer. Good answer. I approve.
Thank you.
I do think, I agree. I do think that batteries will be the most important thing. Not having enough of it, lithium especially, is going to be, to me, the biggest, I won't call it struggle, but if they can't figure out to get them, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Moving to another company that Elon Musk owns, X. I think we're closing in on the 1-year anniversary since he bought that thing for $44 billion. Where do you think this platform goes from here? What would you like to see coming on the platform? New features, complete changes. Where did they go wrong? Where can they go right? Because you're pretty big on there. I'm starting to grow on there, post more, because I think, it makes sense. It makes sense if you believe in what this platform can be. I think growing on there right now, early days.
First mover advantage.
Yeah, it's a pretty good. Even though I'm still waiting, it's been 6-7 months since I've applied for that subscription, and
oh man,
yeah, I think Hans as well. We talked about it yesterday. We're like, it's been 7 months and still no answer.
Oh God. Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of things that need to clean up for sure. I think what I really enjoy about X now is that it truly is a place where I can get as a creator, I can use X as a platform to share my ideas and share my content without any fear of repercussion from the service provider, like a YouTube or something. It doesn't matter how controversial it is, or how much people might dislike it. I can share it there, and that gives me a sense of security, which is great. I like the variety of ideas and concepts that are shared on a daily basis. It's a place I go to get stimulated, from an intelligence perspective. I always trying to learn more. And so X is literally the best place for me to go, because if I go on Google, it's kind of like a tough place to get good information, because it's whatever Google wants you to see in the first page. And then a lot of these publications are typically mainstream media publications that are either behind a paywall, or even worse, are not really giving you all the detail. It's kind of like you don't see all the pieces. Whereas X, I can, go down the rabbit hole of the concept and I see both views all the time. There's people are constantly fighting for what is the right way of looking at something, which I love. And I get that on my own content. When I post something, all of a sudden my replies are, a lot of people are agreeing and positive with it because they're following me. Mm-hmm. But then the people that don't follow me are also throwing in their 2 cents. And those are, to me, more valuable because it forces me to step out of my bubble. So from that perspective, it's phenomenal. I really do enjoy X. However, when it comes to things that they can do better, they can do a lot of things better. I think their video discovery is terrible. So they have to figure out how to make video discovery better. Although, they've improved the video player, I don't get pushed really videos, or I can search for videos in the same way that YouTube can. YouTube is so far ahead from that perspective. So I look forward to X getting at least toe to toe with YouTube. Then you have their analytics are god awful. So I don't even know really how my videos are truly performing. I have to do a lot of manual processes on their spreadsheets, unlike the exports. So, and again, I expect X to clean these things up. These are just things that I'm experiencing. So it's tough to really know how you're doing. Their monetization, I think, can be dramatically improved. And a lot of this just hinges on their ability to show ads and be able to convert those ads into monetization they can send to creators. It's impossible for me to know with confidence why my stuff earns more or earns less. Mm-hmm. And for me, I don't really care because I'm very happy where I'm at financially. But as somebody who, has a pretty decently sized network of people on X, I get people constantly I hear I don't even know why I'm not getting paid more. I got way more impressions. I'm not getting paid more. What's going on? It's a black box. So it's hard to understand. Those are my big 3. Honestly, those are my big 3. I think that the web interface, they have to make a decision at some point if they want to keep the web interface or not keep the web interface, because when I post stuff, sometimes the interface is very glitchy. And so I have to type out a whole thing in docs and then paste it onto X, because sometimes I wrote a freaking post and then it just disappears. And I'm like, oh my God, I just spent the last hour writing and it's gone. So that lesson learned, right?
Yeah.
But they have made a ton of improvements, man, and I give them a lot of credit for the speed. I wish they did it. My gut tells me they're probably at the point where a lot of the improvements they want to put forward, moving forward, probably require some sort of rewrite to the underlying sort of software. Call it they have to rewrite the whole thing. And my guess is that's what they're working towards. And then when they come out with payments and the ability to transfer funds from one user to another, buy stock, buy crypto, all that other stuff that Elon wants to do, I think that's going to unlock a ton of potential for the platform, because now it's going to be a one-stop shop for markets. It's like if you want to exchange value for money in a platform, I think X is going to be, the place where all that stuff happens. And I'm very much looking forward to that, because, an account almost becomes it's not so much like an individual, it's a business. Because maybe my account, I can create blogs, I can provide video, I can reply to people, I can become a consultant of sorts with my DMs. And then I can also create a marketplace where people can go buy products from me or buy services from me, right? So it kind of creates this digital marketplace for an individual where the individual becomes a business. And I think that's extremely empowering in a world where we're going to more and more automated things and more AI things where it could displace a lot of jobs. X could potentially become a place for the individual to become his or her own business and not so much rely on or not so much depend on a corporation to be their only source of income. So yeah, it has a gigantic amount of potential, but it will probably require a pretty massive rewrite. And I think that's what they're going through right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. My focus is definitely on the video aspect. I think video discovery is basically non-existent. I mean, you post a video, after 24 hours or so, that video is basically buried somewhere in some feeds. So I think that's the main aspect. Timestamps, cards, end screens, stuff like that definitely needs to be something that they're thinking on. Like you said, I mean, you can upload stuff, the video format from the media player, but then if you want to have a larger description, you cannot do this because there is still a limit there. You have to go into the tweet, change it. I mean, it's literally on your phone, on your tablet, on your PC, in the media player. It's 4 different platforms. It's like, I'm like, okay,
yeah,
that's a bit strange, but they have made some huge improvements. I mean, it's not even a year, and I mean, it's a completely different thing. So congrats to their team. But like you said, I think the potential is immense. Subscription is already a pretty good way to help a creator there. But like you said, payments, P2P payments, I think is going to be huge. If you want to start selling merch or stuff like that, I mean, social commerce is extremely big in Asia. I think it's going to be bigger in the West as well. That's definitely something they can be working on. But yeah, the future is definitely bright on X. I know we are short on time because you have to leave soon. So 2 things. First, what's the number 1 thing on your bucket list?
Oh, snap. Oh, man, that's a unexpected question. I appreciate it, though. Number 1 thing on my bucket list. Give me a few seconds. I'm really thinking through this one hard. I think I'm gonna go with parenthood, honestly. Yeah. My wife and I want kids, and you know, I'm very much looking forward to being a parent. And that's the biggest one right now is being a father and raising little minions that can help advance civilization. I used to have a sort of mindset where, it's like, I wasn't so much anti-kids, like anti-having kids, but I was like, man, it's like the world is kind of like, you're on social media, you see all these things that are wrong with society. Then you start to understand, it's like, hey, it used to be way worse. Like, it used to be freaking bad, bro. Like the freaking Mongols can just show up and sack your entire city, and then now you just have to say, yep, I'm with you or I'm dead, right? So it's like it's the world was pretty freaking brutal back in the day. So I think my mindset changed a little bit recently, that I think children can be the solution to a lot of the things that we have as a society, as long as we're good parents and we're setting them up with the proper tools to advance civilization. So once I think in my brain that sort of clicked for me, I've been very much looking forward to being a parent and doing my best to raise humans that will be a net benefit to society. So yeah, that's my biggest one right now, for sure.
Okay, I think this is one of the best answers I got to that question. But you're right. I think today.
What do I win?
I'll get you Belgian chocolates when I come to Austin.
Oh my god, that's amazing. Okay, perfect, done.
No, I think you're right. I think there was that video that was trending last week about that woman that talked about, she went to a concert for Beyonce, and that's how good a single mom is. Single mom being single without kids is, blah blah blah. So yes, if you social media can show you that the world is horrible and being single without kids, it's the best life. But I mean, if that was the case, I don't think we would be here, because then our parents wouldn't have kids. But yeah, pretty good answer. And now the last one, space. Would you like to? Is that something that interests you, going to space?
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in going in space for sure. I would love to do, once a few folks test out the systems and stuff, and more brave people than I go up there. I would love to do like a little, maybe like a weekend, or maybe like I don't know, a few days, just orbiting around the Earth, without a cell phone, without nothing, maybe just like a notepad or something that I can be creative with, maybe my guitar, and just experience the world while I'm looking at it. And I think that's going to, it's going to invoke a lot of emotions and thoughts that it's impossible to have while you're like in the atmosphere. I would love that. I think it would be just an incredible experience that I hope all of us have access to in the coming, like in the future, because I really feel like it's going to have a material impact in how we think about humanity. I have a feeling, once we go up there and we see that, listen, this is where every human you've ever met and have ever read about was there. Like, you can see it. It's right there. Boom, right in front of your eyes. Everything you've ever known about everything is literally right in front of you. And I think that's going to have a very great impact for humanity. So I would absolutely love to do it. But going to Mars, that one kind of sucks. I think by the time those systems are ready and people are ready to go, I'm probably going to be in my 50s, maybe even 60s. And I would rather just, a little bit too much. I definitely plan on being around for a long time. I want to take care of myself and all that good stuff. But I don't know. Let the next generation do it. I'm good. I'll just enjoy my Belgian chocolates right here on Earth.
Yeah. And then maybe a weekend, next level glamping in
yes.
space.
You got it. That enough. Sounds wonderful.
Yeah. I agree. I think space to me is number one, actually, on the bucket list, whenever that will be.
Nice.
I don't know, because currently it is pretty expensive, but I think it will become more and more accessible over time. Technology does wonders. But yeah, we'll wait and see. Exciting times ahead.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we're gonna end on this high note. Again, thank you very much.
Literally.
For time. Literally. Yeah,
absolutely, man.
Thanks again for taking the time. If you have something you want to say to the viewers, now is the time.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you reaching out, and this was an awesome conversation. Excellent questions, super stimulating. Really appreciate you and everything that you do. Make sure, if you haven't subscribed and liked this guy yet, go do it right now, right below this video. And yeah, anytime you'd like me to come back, let me know. And we should have you on the channel sometime too. So yeah, this was awesome. This was an awesome conversation. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much. And to the viewers, thank you, and see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.